Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban were once hailed by Hollywood as the epitome of perfection. Two refined individuals who grinned throughout interviews and flashbacks, as if love were a well-planned film. However, in a city that thrives on deception, perfection is short-lived. When rumors of a fearless new country singer called Maggie Baugh started to circulate online, the silence broke. Doors, proliferating more quickly than a public relations crew could remove remarks. 6 eerie words and a single mysterious post started it all. Avalanche. Even with celebrity, some wounds never go away. The fragrance was sufficient for the online investigators, but there were no tags or references to leap. Fans discovered within hours that Maggie had liked an old picture of Keith, one that was hidden deep in 2018, the sort when he said thanks to a close buddy who served as an inspiration for his music. Social media suddenly became a virtual courtroom. Theories, screenshots, and assumptions blazed across comment sections. One person commented, "She's talking about Keith." Another person said, "Nicole better check her DMs." Watching a house of glass break was like that. In slow motion. It was revelation, not gossip, that followed. Fearless and ferocious, Maggie Baugh dropped what she termed receipts. Half-cropped, half-lit screenshots that are damning enough to start a fire. Keith is said to have sent messages that included, "I wish you were here tonight," and another, "You restore the authenticity of music." Were they false, perhaps? However, time lends credibility to the truth. It was made worse by Keith Urban's response, or lack thereof. He gave a faint grin as photographers pushed him, and he didn't say she was lying when he remarked, "People do anything for attention." Silence in Hollywood may sound like admission. Nicole turned the suffering into a show. She unfollowed her first husband. A caption that cut like glass then appeared. Loyalty is not just a term. That was it. A marriage was shattered by 6 words. The press transformed it into poetry. It became proof thanks to the blogs, and it became a meme thanks to supporters. Rumor had it that Nicole had moved out of their house for a few days in order to find room in Sydney. She was seen strolling by herself, no wedding ring, diary in hand. The tabloids were quick to jump in. The title changed to reflection mode. It wasn't self-care, however. It was a matter of survival. Both sides rushed behind the scenes. Nicole's side desired quiet, while Keith's team prepared a statement on unfounded reports. Damage management changed into a struggle. The narrative was no longer theirs after screenshots were posted online. It was a part of the globe. A society hooked to pain, evidence, and treachery. Then Maggie was gone. Her whole page was wiped clear one morning. No postings without a trail or subtitles. A tale that said, "The truth always comes out," was all that was left. Time is of the essence. It was also gone a day later. Naturally, however, the screenshots were immortal. More conjecture was only stoked by the abrupt absence. Were she threatened by Keith's attorneys? Was the story buried by Nicole's team? Or was this a ploy to promote Maggie's recently released song, Fame and Fire, which came out a few days later? The lyrics are too realistic. "I was simply another person, yet he claimed that I was his music." He would forget the verse. Ever the master of understated sarcasm, Nicole Kidman shared a black and white selfie with the caption, "Silence can be misinterpreted." It seemed lyrical to the inexperienced eye. To the it was a shot-fired rumor globe. Keith, meantime, attempted to lose himself in his job. He gave a performance in Nashville. He grinned for the audience, but at the last chorus his voice broke. It was captured on camera by a fan, and the video went gaining popularity with the hashtag #InBrokenUrban. The performance that was supposed to reduce the noise instead served as evidence that the noise had already triumphed. Suddenly, anonymous sources that are usually too knowledgeable appeared out of nowhere. One said that Keith had promised to help Maggie with her songs when they first met at a charity event years before. According to an insider, what started out as mentoring evolved into something more ambiguous. There was no denying the chemistry. Young and fervent, she believed he was the guy who could unlock any door. She reminded him of the fire he had had. Every late-night text about music and every duet in the studio blended into something you couldn't no longer call a professional. The tale went viral on the internet, as if it had been waiting for this turn of events all along. Nicole's lonesome appearances served as public proof of her anguish. Each picture sans her ring was handled as if it were a court filing. Her composure infuriated others. Her lack of response raised suspicions. Then suddenly a picture surfaced online. Off-center and grainy, yet memorable. Maggie Baugh and Keith Urban grinning in the backdrop at a private gathering. He touched her back gently. There is just enough warmth in the picture to make a story become true. No caption, no context. From there, everything fell apart. Headlines were dominated by Maggie's name. Dates of Keith's tour began having their sponsorship reevaluated. In private, Nicole's brand partners asked for clarification. From rumors to crisis management, everything changed. Even country music artists began saying incoherently on Twitter that males are losing nice women. Hollywood's ideal marriage was becoming a popular spectacle. One hashtag at a time. The late-night TikTok live followed. Maggie Baugh's tear before cutting the stream off streaked said, "Sometimes loving someone in silence hurts louder than their lies." In the middle of a sentence. Just enough sadness to be credible. No names, no background. That a 4-minute clip went viral more quickly than any interview could. Frame after frame, fans played it back to themselves, believing they witnessed suffering rather than a plan. Others referred to her as a performance and an opportunist. However, either manner, she was the center of attention, along with Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's collapsing enterprise. The consequences increased. Progressively heavier. It was dubbed the Urban Unraveling by tabloids. Commentators argued about whether that was a PR brilliance or treachery. People were no longer only chatting among themselves. They were doing detective-style analysis. Every public grin and every sentence stop was turned into data. Was it a contrived illusion or true love? One reporter wrote, "Perception was the only relevant evidence in the social media court." After many weeks, the quiet broke once again. Keith's site included only one picture. Nicole and he were standing, smiling, well-framed on a balcony with the sunset behind them. "Some storms pass," the caption said. "There are others who teach you how to dance in the rain." Immediately, the mayhem returned. Was this old? Was it staged? Were they making amends? The internet dissected the image pixel by pixel, examining the lighting, body language, and even the glass's reflections. While some supporters yelled foul, others rejoiced. "They're faking peace," written one user. Another said, "If I've ever seen it, that's PR lighting." Insiders muttered behind closed doors about contracts and treatment sessions. According to some, Nicole insisted on therapy before approving any public appearances they would do together. Others said that the picture was staged to reassure sponsors and investors. Since in Hollywood, love stories are not just sentimental. They are also financial. Each picture has a cost, and each silence has a technique. But the emotional fallout couldn't be maintained indefinitely. A paparazzi reporters discovered a video of Nicole leaving a charity dinner alone herself, with her face inscrutable and her eyes veiled by sunglasses. "Are you leaving him?" yelled. She didn't have to respond, however, so she never did. She shared a shadow shot later that evening, and that silent stroll told it all. "Every light reveals what darkness hides," the caption reads. Fans proclaimed it the year's best quote in a matter of minutes. Others referred to it as the last farewell. Hollywood was no longer seeing a marriage at this point. It was an epic. Tickets to Keith Urban's tour, Maggie Baugh's song shot to the top of streaming charts, increased. Nicole Kidman's rating for compassion skyrocketed. The difference between, was it choreography, or was it just a coincidence that sorrow and marketing had become so muddled? No one knew, but one thing was certain. Each participant in this triangle was winning something, but there was no denying the emotional underbelly of it all. A man's faltering grin, a woman's subdued fury, and a third person whose suffering turned into poetry. The Hollywood, the facade had broken down, revealing just people, flawed, ambitious, in a community where people sell tales to survive. Perhaps that's what love looks like these days, eager for attention and forgiveness. Not truth, not falsehoods, just performance, and the rumors persisted as the city lights faded over Los Angeles. That Nicole Kidman was preparing a move of her own, something little but decisive, because if the stillness wasn't serenity, and a woman who learns to use silence as a weapon, is more deadly than a woman who has been deceived. It was preparation, and each rumor, song lyric, and misplaced ring was just one part of a much longer tale. People first believed that the storm would pass after a few news cycles, but Hollywood remember blood in the water? The rumors about Maggie Baugh, Keith Urban, and Nicole Kidman only became stronger, sharper with time, becoming into something more like to obsession than gossip. The pair who once the duo who had previously sailed past, premieres like royalty were now being examined like proof. Every gesture was exaggerated, every grin was probed, and every quiet moment was interpreted as an admission. It was no longer about truth, and the city yelled louder the more they attempted to conceal. For once, Nicole seemed to grasp the importance of narrative control. She had ceased searching for the truth and began managing the illusion. Behind the velvet drapes of public decorum, according to sources, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban were engaged in a silent battle over image rather than rage, and meetings with crisis managers turned into treatment sessions. Practiced excuses were used as leverage. They were co-authors of a novel that had gone awry, and they were no longer lovers. On certain days, they would practice together and appear in front of cameras, but on other days they would not even share a home. However, Hollywood doesn't reward sadness, and both were aware that openly leaving would lose them millions in sponsorships and reputation. It makes money, therefore the program has to continue. Everything was then rekindled by a private voice note that was leaked online. The voice was muffled and of poor quality, but it sounded painfully familiar. A guy muttering about needing freedom and wanting to start anew. Fans had already determined that it was Keith Urban, so they didn't need proof. The video went viral, with some claiming it was altered, and others claiming it was a part of a bigger Keith's team rejected the tape as an artificial intelligence creation that someone sold to a gossip website. The harm was done, however, since the footage had already reached millions of people by the time the denial came. Belief became more important than truth. Maggie Baugh, who had she vanished after removing her postings? Then all of a sudden she was trending once again, and her following doubled in a single day. Didn't publish, didn't talk, and didn't explain, and that silence turned into her most powerful tool. Fans projected some others blamed her absence on a judicial gag order, while some idealized it as a heartbreak retreat, a lady recovering after being paid to vanish. Erased by celebrity, she didn't require a press conference when she returned weeks later. The single came out of nowhere, and she let the music speak for itself. Honesty Hurts was a simple acoustic song with just Maggie Baugh's vocals and a guitar. He sung me songs he created for her, raw and shaking. I was his echo, not his home. The message was etched in passion, but there were no names or explicit allusions. Social media was inundated with our honest wounds within hours, with fans deconstructing each stanza and linking every phrase to Keith Urban. Like a coded confession, Maggie was now being quoted by individuals who had never heard of her before. It was picked up by radio stations, and entertainment presenters showed brief segments of Keith's performance alongside older footage. For streaming figures, it seemed as if two worlds, music and scandal, had combined perfectly. Nicole. The quiet was deafening. Kidman remained unnaturally silent, posting no cryptic statements, unfollowing no one again, or publicly reacting. Some referred to it as strategy, while others called it dignity. Insiders rumored that she had started speaking with lawyers behind the scenes. Reputation is intellectual property in Hollywood, and not for divorce, but for image preservation. Every tale has merit, and Nicole was making sure that her version of events would be the only one recorded in history. Talk programs transformed the issue into thought pieces, and the business was unable to ignore it. About PR manipulation, love, and devotion. One podcast even dubbed it the most amazing unintentional marketing. Roll out in years since, in some way, all three of her professions were doing well. Maggie Baugh's single peaked higher on the charts than any of her earlier songs. Curiosity alone caused Keith Urban's concert attendance to increase, while Nicole Kidman became the embodiment of perseverance. They were all profiting off the upheaval that had almost destroyed them, and they remained firm in the face of treachery. However, there comes a time when performance begins to devour the people inside it. Late one evening, Nicole and Keith were seen by paparazzi as they left a Los Angeles restaurant. Angeles. There was no music in the video, just gestures. And Nicole's body was rigid. Keith's. She glanced away as he reached for her hand, his lips quivering as if he were pleading. The video circulated on social media with the hashtag #Round2, but oddly, people didn't make fun of them this time. The rawness struck a new chord. Perhaps people were sick of taking sides. 2 days later, Keith Urban shared a little video on Instagram, revealing what was underneath: exhaustion rather than plan. He was playing a gentle tune while sitting on a stool, and midway through the video, Nicole Kidman showed up next to him without saying anything. Word, only dancing softly while keeping her eyes closed. "Forgiveness is louder than rumors," the caption said. The video became one of the most shared within hours after that sentence went viral on the internet like poetry. Postings of the year. Heartfelt and prayerful remarks were sent by fans. And everyone suddenly wished to believe in people are more drawn to reconciliation than to controversy. Yet those who Nicole's hand barely brushed Keith's knee, and those who looked attentively saw the tightness under the palm. Her eyes never met her grin, which seemed more like closure than consolation. They were entire again to the world, but perception was all that counted. The illusion had been reestablished, and they were once again secure assets for the industry. There was another discussion going on behind closed doors. A tabloid got an internal document from a public relations firm indicating that the whole story had been handled using narrative escalation. The memo said that both Keith and concurrent spikes in internet interest helped Maggie's releases, including the notorious image of Keith and Nicole on the Sydney balcony, the one that went viral, had been pre-approved for timing, and confirmed what fans had long assumed. At first, the sadness may have been genuine, but the manner it transpired wasn't quite natural, was polished, repackaged, and made profitable. The internet went crazy when that expose appeared on newsstands. While half of the fans applauded the ingenuity of it, the other half were incensed and accused all three of manipulating public sentiment. Everything. One tweet said, "Control the gossip if you can't avoid it." By then, the figures were indisputable, and they were believed to have elevated sadness to the level of art. Sales, sponsorships, engagement analytics, and streams have all exploded. It didn't. Regardless of the truth, the performance had been successful. Despite the pandemonium, Maggie Baugh was the only person who had never lost her mystery. Attend interviews. Rather of providing an explanation, she published another. The calm side is a gentler, sadder tune with a single sentence that shattered everyone's heart. The comment section erupted once again as he said that love was a duet, but he only sung his part. Some accused her of taking advantage of suffering, while others commended her courage. In any case, she remained on everyone's playlist, and the exact controversy that had previously hushed her had her anguish as its music. Nicole Kidman's next public appearance was a well-planned triumph. Months later, she walked the red carpet shining and dazzling, wearing a golden robe with that recognizable serene smile. Reporters yelled questions about trust, forgiveness, and marriage. She just smiled and left without saying anything. The next morning, the identical headline was published by the outlet. Nicole Kidman chooses grace over gossip. Keith Urban continued to perform. A lady who had once shuddered beneath gossip had learnt to use quiet as a weapon. His set selections are thoughtfully organized to include songs about perseverance, loyalty, and redemption. Although he never brought up the issue again, sometimes when the audience became silent, his gaze would stray, perhaps toward remorse, or perhaps toward, for some supporters, it was a sense of relief. For others, it was evidence that he was once again human. Ultimately, there was never any formal resolution, and that shame persists long when the cameras stop recording. No declaration, no admission, no indication of a reunion. Just 3 lives that went on simultaneously. Linked by a tale that had turned into a legend, Maggie Baugh used songs to express her reality. Nicole Kidman represented hers by stillness, while Keith Urban performed his through tune. They worked together to create one of the most complex scandals Hollywood had ever seen, And perhaps that was the whole idea. Perhaps it was more about surviving in an emotionally driven metropolis than it was about love or treachery. The audience constantly demands an encore, and sadness is simply another act in Hollywood. As the following scene was captured by the cameras, feeling hints to what's really occurred between Keith, Nicole, and Maggie hung about like a fire's smoke. Because in reality, nobody will ever understand where the behavior ceased and the feeling started. What we saw was the finalized version, packaged with love for consumption. To gain compassion, pain was altered. Forgiveness that is arranged to go viral. The true tale, the one underlying the headlines and hashtags, remained locked among 3 individuals who discovered that a scandal may only be avoided by make it into a work of art. Additionally, somewhere in a Maggie Baugh was said to be in a poorly lit studio to resume writing. One last tune described as timing and whispers. The lyrics said to have leaked from the demo. They